Hi trainers, how's it going? I hope you're having wonderful games. Today we'll be discussing Blastoise and Snorlax. I'll be comparing their stats, their damage, their crowd control, survivability, and more. I'm Teeds, I'm a master player and I've been playing MOBAs for over 9 years. My goal is to help you become the very best like no one ever was. A super duper important disclaimer, this is based on my opinion and research. You may not agree with me and that's perfectly okay. I'm trying to see if this will work as a series. This is meant to be an open discussion and I'm looking forward to reading your opinions and insights. With that, for the question of the day, who do you think is better, Snorlax or Blastoise, and why? And a bonus question, if there is another two Pokemon you'd like me to compare, let me know in the comments down below. Okay, let's get into it. Snorlax has been considered the best defender for high competitive since pretty much the beginning. This does not mean that all defenders are bad, I find them all great in their own way, as each defender has strengths and weaknesses in different things. But out of the three defenders we had, Snorlax has the easiest time to hold and block off enemies from important objectives like Dreadnought and Zapdos. Blastoise has recently joined us and surprisingly is super strong, so we'll be discussing the balance of Blastoise as well as comparing it to the top defender for competitive rank, Snorlax. Alright, let's talk about their stats. Huge shout out to UniteDB for their base stats. I use their numbers to make my own calculations. Blastoise and Snorlax are both defenders. Blastoise is a special attack based Pokemon and Snorlax is a physical attack based Pokemon. This is based on their level 15 stats. What I'm going to do here is compare how tanky the two are. Here are my calculations I made. I know it looks so confusing, but I'm going to simplify this for you. Thank you to MaxiQ for sitting in a ton of customs with me to test these out. Snorlax has higher max health while Blastoise has higher defense, although with both, it's not too different. From my testing, survivability wise without using their moves, Blastoise is very so slightly tankier, just a little bit though that it shouldn't really make a difference at all. This does mean stat wise that Blastoise is tankier than Snorlax, but in such a tiny way that I would just say they're pretty much the same. And to confirm my calculations, I also tested with a level 15 Pikachu, and what I did here is just basic attack both Snorlax and Blastoise separately. Blastoise did last just a tiny bit longer, taking 46 basic attacks, while Snorlax took 45. For the rest of the video, this will be based on my opinion and experience since I can't really calculate everything here, so this is completely subjective. I consider myself not biased towards any Pokemon in Pokemon Unite, so I do always try to look at both sides very fairly. I also just want to take the time to thank our defender mains and the players who give up their role to play defender. Thank you so much for what you do for the team. With that, let's talk about survivability now that we know their defense stats and their health stats. I personally feel that Snorlax is better in the survivability department. Early game, Snorlax has Arrest, which regenerates its health, and it also has its Unite move, which shields and heal you for a lot, almost full health, making it really hard for enemies to take you down. Snorlax also has Heavy Slam, which can be used to jump away, Yawn to buy yourself time, and Flail for movement speed. The move Block is a bit harder to escape with, but you basically just want to try and eat up any melee range moves. But Block can be used to buy you time for your other moves to come up if you need to use it for survivability. With Blastoise, while I feel that Snorlax survives better, Blastoise still has an easy time surviving as well. You can use your knockbacks to create distance, and Rapid Spin also gives you Unstoppable, so you cannot be crowd controlled in any way. Taking all this into consideration, in comparison, I feel that Snorlax can survive better than Blastoise because the crowd control is harder and it also has health regeneration and an insane Unite move to bring it back almost to full health. I guess another way you can survive as Blastoise is to just destroy everyone on the enemy team. Now let's talk about crowd control. This is something very important for defenders to have. It's the setup for your team. Snorlax and Blastoise both have a ton of crowd control. Snorlax has a Heavy Slam which can knock up multiple enemies in the area. Snorlax Block, you can knock back multiple enemies easily for a longer duration. Your Yawn will put them to sleep. Snorlax basically just has a ton of hard crowd control, and what hard crowd control is are moves that can prevent enemies from using anything. While soft crowd control is basically like slows, they are slowed but they can still use their moves, so it's just soft crowd control. So speaking about knockbacks, Blastoise does have a lot of knockbacks. If picking up Hydro Pump, your knockback will have to be aimed and more calculated than Snorlax's block. So this makes that knockback a bit more difficult than Snorlax's block. A strategy some players implement with their knockbacks is to flash behind them and block them into the team for setup. So if we do this with Snorlax, it's easier. If you do this with Blastoise, it's a bit harder because you do have to aim it better. Blastoise also has a slow on Rapid Spin and Water Spout, but I personally find knockups, stuns, sleeps much stronger than slows. Blastoise also does have a stun as Squirtle, but you do lose that pretty quickly, so you pretty much don't have that stun anymore after you get into the mid to late game. However, Blastoise's Unite move crowd control control is pretty insane, and it does a ton of damage, whereas Snorlax can last in a fight longer if you use a Unite move because it will heal you. In conclusion, I personally feel that Snorlax's crowd control is better than Blastoise because it's considered hard crowd control and is easier to use for setup and defending. And Blastoise also has good crowd control, but it doesn't feel as strong as Snorlax because Blastaise's crowd control feels more like soft CC. It's still really decent. It just feels more offensive and much shorter than Snorlax's CC. Depending on what you pick up, you can also mistakenly push enemies out of your allies' moves, which makes it pretty difficult, whereas Snorlax has an easier time setting up for allies with their moves. With the Unite moves, I feel that Blastaise's Unite move is pretty strong for crowd control though, because that knock up and range is huge. You can easily hit so many enemies with it, but generally I feel that Snorlax's crowd control is better than Blastoise's at the moment. Now let's talk about damage. I'm sure if you've seen gameplays and clips, it clearly shows what Blastoise can do, and it has an insane amount of damage, and because of this, it has players thinking that Blastoise should be more of an all-rounder or an attacker than a defender. I didn't feel like I should run tests for this one because when factoring in their moves and how each game is so different, but from a logical standpoint, Blastoise will deal more damage than Snorlax. Snorlax is down one damaging move because you can either only pick up Block or Yawn. Both of these moves do not deal damage. All of Blastoise's moves deal damage, and your basic attacks also reduce the cooldown of your moves after every boosted attack. So you basically have your moves up again even quicker, doing damage again. If you pick up Rapid Spin, you can reset the cooldown of other moves as well. When considering all of this, Blastoise in the end should rack up more damage than Snorlax. This is why players tend to consider Blastoise an all-rounder or attacker because it just deals so much damage. As a defender, I don't think Blastoise should be able to get takedowns as easy as it does at the moment with how tanky it is as well. It feels like it needs some tinkering for sure. Don't get me wrong, Snorlax also can deal a ton of damage as well, but with Snorlax, it doesn't feel as easy to get takedowns as it does with Blastoise. Well, actually, multiple takedowns. Let's talk about balance. I personally feel that Snorlax is in a good place, and I feel that Blastoise needs to be tuned down a little bit. The issue that I have with Blastoise is that it has the same tankiness as Snorlax, but it also has such high damage. So the issue here is that it's hard to take Blastoise down, and it's also possible for Blastoise to just take enemies out on its own too. Blastoise is also unstoppable in Rapid Spin. It can go through Snorlax's block. That means it is immune to crowd controls, which makes it very easy for Blastoise to get into the backline and still deal major damage to the enemies. So I personally feel that Blastoise needs some nerfs to its damage just because it is so tanky, or maybe rework it into an all-rounder. Let's get down to the question. Who is better, Snorlax or Blastoise? They are both very good in their own different ways. As solo queue or duo queue, maybe even trio queues, I personally feel that Blastoise is a good pick as a defender because at the moment with how strong Blastoise is, it has the ability to carry itself and doesn't rely as much on other teammates. Snorlax, however, I feel is really good for coordinated teams. This doesn't go for all players, but it can be harder to carry as Snorlax if your team isn't following up. Because you cannot really do anything in your wall block, for example, you will rely on teammates dealing damage to enemies. Both defenders are nowhere near weak. I feel that both defenders are strong and viable in competitive play. They're both so different to each other that one fills areas the other doesn't, and vice versa. I honestly think that it's pretty good to have both on one team because Blastoise is so tanky and does so much damage, and Snorlax can set up so well, still deals decent damage, and is also super tanky. Blastoise is also range, so you could just use it as an attacker as well. So that's my thoughts. What do you trainers think? Do you think Blastoise or Snorlax is better? If you have more Pokemon like me to compare, let me know in the comments down below. Feel free to subscribe and click the bell for more videos just like this one. Like the video if you found that interesting. Thank you so much for watching, trainers. Bye!